Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have John Wogelmuth. He is a Power Platform Solution Architect here at True North, and he'll be discussing unlocking the potential of Dynamics 365 Sales Hub. During the webinar, please be sure to put any questions you might have in the chat, and then we will take some time throughout the webinar to answer any questions. With that, I will let John take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I guess I will kick it off by answering probably what is the primary question, which is, what is Sales Hub? And so Sales Hub is an app. It is an app that is within Dynamics 365. And like the other apps that you can see on the screen here, Sales Hub sits on top of your Dataverse, and it gets its data from the same place as your other apps do. But the idea behind the Sales Hub is to put the focus on surfacing elements that will assist your sales team and make their processes easier and more simplified. So even though there are hundreds of tables in your Dataverse, only the ones that are critical to the sales process are exposed in the Sales Hub. This is going to reduce clutter, and it's going to make it easier for your sales folks to get what they need and not be bogged down by what they don't. So Sales Hub is also built on what they call the unified interface. And the idea behind that is that you will get the same experience with this unified interface or Sales Hub or any of the apps that are in the unified interface, no matter what device you're using to connect. So if you're on a computer, or you could be using a different device like a tablet or a mobile phone, it's going to render and look the same. Now, of course, with a smaller screen like a phone, you're going to see things will be more long form, there'll be more scrolling, things like that. But things are going to look the same, they're going to render the same, and you'll have that same experience regardless of the device that you're using. And that is huge, especially if you have people using multiple different devices and they're trying to familiarize with the system. Another thing that should definitely not be overlooked, and I'll click up here, this is a huge benefit. When you are using Dynamics 365 or any of its apps, including Sales Hub, in the cloud, is you have access and you are living within the Microsoft ecosystem. So Sales Hub, being an app of D365, has native access to all of these. So these are all of your M365 components. So that's Word, Excel, SharePoint, Teams, any of these things that you can use for productivity or for collaboration. These are all natively connected and all here in the same universe. This makes it really easy for you to integrate these tools into your workflow. Whereas if you were using a different system outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, whatever that may be, that might require the building of complicated integrations to be able to do the same thing. And those can be expensive to develop, and they do have to be maintained and monitored to make sure that they're working correctly. So living within the Microsoft ecosystem is by itself a huge benefit. But all of this is sort of just an overview. Let's actually dive into the application itself. So I'm going to do a pretty thorough job of going through just about all the components of the Sales Hub app today. And again, if there are things that I don't cover or that you are curious about, we are still available as resources. So get those questions in the Q&A. I am going to be taking pauses to answer questions, definitely at the end and most likely about halfway through the session as well, to make sure that I'm answering the questions. Any questions that are not answered during the session, we will get back to you with responses. So here is the Sales Hub. It is colorful and pretty. It's aesthetically pleasing. But beyond that, Microsoft has worked for years, and this has evolved through the many different versions of Dynamics from when it used to be CRM to then Dynamics to what it is now, primarily cloud-based. It has evolved and evolved, and they have put a lot of work into making this easy to use. And so I was talking about Sales Hub being an app. That was a concept that they introduced to make things easier to get around and use. So if you look at the left side of the screen here, you have the navigation. Now, these are not all of the tables that are in the system. These are just the ones that are exposed to the Sales Hub. And with Sales Hub and with any of the applications, the idea here is to expose only what you need for that application's purpose. So even though there can be hundreds of tables that exist in your Dataverse that you have access to data of, you don't necessarily need to see all of that. If I'm a salesperson and I come in here, I only need to be able to see a few things. In fact, there may even be things on here I don't need. Marketing, for example. Do I need that? Maybe not. All of these applications are customizable. So while this is what comes with the Sales Hub out of the box, you can hide and show tables on your navigation based on what you actually need to be able to see to make things nice and streamlined and easy for your users. Now, when I select one of these, I'll use accounts. You're going to see my screen on the right, or the center of the screen, update. And we call those views. And so I have selected accounts, so I'm now seeing a view of accounts. And if you have worked with Excel or really any sort of, table structured data like this, this is not going to be entirely unfamiliar to you. You're going to have your columns of data, and then under those columns, you have your rows. These views are customizable. And so this view, even though it has account name and main phone and address city, it doesn't mean that that's all that we have in this table. So you can edit columns. And within this, you can see the columns that we currently have, but we also have the ability to add. So when I click that, what that will then give me is the full list of all of the different columns that are listed in the actual database for that particular table. So if I want to see who created it, I can add my created by, and I will apply that. And that's going to add that column to my table. Now, after doing that, I then have the ability to do all sorts of Excel-like things like sorting. I can sort A to Z, Z to A. If it's a numeric column, I can do, values. There's also the ability to do filtering on these. So let's see. We have an account here in Dallas. Now, say I have a list that isn't just 6 accounts. Say I have a list that is 6,000 accounts. Filters here. And after some light spinning, what we can do, I can actually probably make it easier using this. I can filter my column by Dallas. And that will reduce my list down to only records that meet that criteria. Now, the other good thing about views is, say I have gone through all of those steps, I've added columns, I've done filtering, and I don't want to have to do that again later. Up here in the top left, I can do my dropdown, and I can save as a new view. So I can say my active accounts in Dallas, and that will save that as a personal view that I can then get to quickly and easily later, so I don't have to go through all those steps and recreate that again. And then, like I said, let's see, we'll clear the filter here. All of the views that you have available to you are listed in this dropdown. So I can see active accounts, I can see all accounts, I can see inactive accounts. And you can quickly and easily switch back and forth and see those lists of records without even having to open these up to be able to look at the information that's within them. Okay, let's talk the primary entities or tables that we really tend to use the most within Sales Hub. I am going to dive into several of them, quite a few of them, but the primary ones that we're going to focus on are accounts, contacts, and then this sales section here. So we have our leads and opportunities. I'm actually going to walk through that entire sales process, and I will show you some neat things about the forms and some of those processes as we go along. But it's important to understand the concept of accounts and contacts before we even get into that. So an account is like a business, and a contact is someone who would work or represent that business. So even though every business is different and sometimes this can be changed or customized, typically an account is going to be something like a Datum Corporation or Alpine Ski House. And then if I were to go into that, I would have a list of people that work there listed under them. And so contacts belong to accounts. That's just a key thing to understand regarding the hierarchy of how by default these tables are organized. So that way, if I go into an account and I'm looking for the primary contact, or say I'm looking for the CFO or somebody who has a particular role, it's easy for me to find them and quickly get to either their account information or get to the contact information I need to be able to get to them. So it has that relationship and just makes it quick and easy for you to be able to access and get the person that you're trying to get to on the line. Next is leads. Now, leads and opportunities are closely related. And I've seen some businesses even bypass leads, but I tend to suggest otherwise, and I'll explain why in a bit here. But essentially, a lead is like a business card. A lead is somebody you may have had contact with, or they're a promising prospect. There's some reason why you think that they could potentially be an opportunity. Whereas an opportunity is a lead that has been qualified. So if I get a business card from somebody at a convention and they say, yeah, reach out. I might be interested. I don't know right now, but reach out. Let's chat. Get a hold of me next Tuesday. Let's see what happens. That's a lead. But then if I call them and they say, actually, yeah, this sounds really good. Let's start talking numbers. That's an opportunity. That lead is now qualified because you have a strong potential sale or opportunity there for a sale. So it's just important to understand the difference between the two. And to further clarify on that, I'm actually going to walk through the entire process, starting at a lead, going to an opportunity, and then turning that opportunity into a quote. So it'll essentially be, from birth to business. So let's start at the leads. I'm going to create a new one. Now you'll see my screen changed. That is because I am now in a lead form, and I'm going to tell you several details about this. But let's fill in some information here. I'm very creative with my naming conventions here. And let's actually give them an address. All right, so we have some basic information. And again, this is the type of stuff that you would get on a business card. So we now have the person's name, we have their title, and we do have an address. But that's basically all you would expect to have with this lead. Now, there are various things that are on here that are supported by AI. So you see the section up at the top here that says up next. We also have assistant and who knows whom. And I know these are a little bare because this is a trial environment, it's a demo system. But if this were real life, we'd be able to actually see, potential LinkedIn connections. And it also could look at emails, for example, that come in on the timeline here, which I'll be talking about next. And it can gauge sentiment. So if somebody sends an email where, potentially they're using profanity or something along those lines, it can say, hey, this is a potentially, upset customer, the sentiment is bad here. And it can draw your attention to those things so that you can sort of prioritize those things that may be more critical than, sorry, let's reschedule till next Tuesday. I have to, drop my kid off at soccer. So there are ways here where AI will kind of just comb through the information that you put in and try to bring things to your focus if they jump out. The manager activities section, essentially what that is if you have a series of activities in the system and they have various different due dates, I need to make a phone call next Tuesday, or I have an email that I need to send today. This is going to take your activities and it's going to kind of organize those chronologically, especially in relation to this lead, to show you what you have coming up next, so that you are making sure you keep track of those and handling things in the chronological order in which they should be handled. And that brings us to the timeline. So the timeline is actually, this is one of the bread and butter items of a CRM system. And this is a huge benefit, especially if you have multiple different people that are going to be opening the same accounts and contacts and things of that sort. Essentially, this is going to centralize all of your communication with this lead. So any phone calls, any emails, any appointments, things like that are tracked against this record, they're going to appear in this timeline. And that's not just to you. So if you put in a phone call here and then somebody else opens this lead, they can see that phone call. And this is a great collaboration tool because then if somebody else opens up the same contact for potentially a different reason, and they see that you've already called them today or yesterday, they might realize, hey, I don't need to make this same phone call because somebody has already talked to them. And that can prevent embarrassment. That can prevent you from, calling somebody and they're like, yeah, I just talked to somebody an hour ago and you didn't know about it. So having this centralized record of your relationship with these leads or contacts or accounts is critical. And you will see this timeline on just about every record that you open here, especially all the primary records like the accounts and the contacts, because we want to be able to track that. So let's add some activities. To be able to add an activity here on the timeline, it's as simple as clicking the plus, and then I'm going to add a phone call. And then I'm going to say, and of course, you can be a lot more detailed with what you're putting into the details here. You can have an extended description, and maybe you're not even making the phone call right now. Maybe you're scheduling it for the future. You can't set a future due date, things like that. You can even set priority. If this is a very high priority call that you need to make sure that you're getting out, you can do that. And so let's get that saved. And you can see here that it is now tracked in my timeline. Additionally, email tracking. You do have the ability to add an email here through the plus, kind of like what I just showed you, but you also have native integration with Outlook. And this clicks back to that, the section I was showing you up in the top left where we had all those different Microsoft 365 apps that you have native integration to. Outlook also being part of that ecosystem, you have native integration to it. So if you get an email to your Outlook, you can set up a native connector to Dynamics so that you can say, hey, this email is important. This needs to be tracked against this particular lead or contact. And you can then track that from Outlook into Dynamics. And it will appear here in the timeline so that anybody who might need to see that information is going to have that visible. Okay. Competitors, I will talk a bit about more in the future here. But one more critical thing on the form here that you will see in multiple different places is up top here where I have these, this kind of target symbol up above qualify, and then we have develop and propose. We have these different stages. These are what we call business process flows. And these are enormously helpful. So essentially what a business process flow is it gives you the ability to set a standardized set of stages that these records have to go through. And so if you have a process that every one of your people needs to follow when they are handling a lead, for example, before we qualify a lead, we want to know what the purchase time frame is. We want to know what the estimated budget is. These are things that you can make required. And you can set these in these stages so that the records actually have to move through these stages before they can go on to be qualified to an opportunity or turned into a quote, et cetera, et cetera. This is also very good as a training utility. So for example, I have put these in place in call centers where, some of them have fairly significant turnover and there's a lot of people that are hired regularly and they need to be trained fast. When you have something like this, it not only makes it easy for you to train them, but it also makes them more comfortable because they're not sitting and staring at the screen and thinking, what am I supposed to do? They can look at the screen and they can see, hey, I'm in the qualify stage. I need to do this. I should also point out, this is customizable. Pretty much everything in Dynamics is customizable. So everything you see on the screen, all the things in the navigation, everything that's on the form, all the fields, all the sections can all be moved. They can be hidden. New things can be added. The same thing goes for these business process flows. So if you have a specific to your business set of steps and requirements in each of those stages that you want to have in your business process flow, it can be customized to match that fairly easily so that it is exactly what you need and that anybody that's going in there can see exactly what they need to do and when they need to do it. I'm also going to point out this Files tab. Now, what this does is this connects to SharePoint. SharePoint, also in the Microsoft ecosystem. This gives you a place for you to store all documents related to one of these records. And this can be enabled on any of these tables. And so what you're going to have here is, so if you go into an account or you go into a contact, you'll have a list of your quotes or any documents related to that record that you might have, or any spreadsheets or anything at all that you might want to store. Images, even videos, you can store that here in the SharePoint, and that's actually going to use the SharePoint storage to be able to link those files to these records. So SharePoint, the storage is cheaper than loading up your Dynamics Dataverse storage with videos and documents and images and things like that. But also, it will relate those back here. So even though the actual documents themselves are stored within SharePoint, you can view them and access them. They are linked right back here to Dynamics, just like a folder you would have, and it's all automatically organized. So if you need to be able to get to something, no problem. Okay, let's keep moving through this. So we have our lead, we put in our information, we've reached out, we've talked to them, and they've said, you know what, I am interested. Let's further this. I think this sounds like something that might be a good fit. Let's continue down the process. So at that point, this is no longer a lead because it's far beyond a business card now. It's now an actual opportunity. So we're going to qualify. All right, and so it looks similar, but we're actually in a different screen. You can see we are now in the opportunity, and our stage here has moved from qualify to develop. Another thing is you can see that when I hover over contact here, it's a separate record that I can actually click into. It is now a contact record. So this is one of the reasons why I tend to suggest against cutting out the lead step, because what the lead is going to do is it's going to take that company info that you put in. It's going to take that information about the person that you put in, and it's going to create records for all of those. It'll create an account record. It'll create a contact record, and it will relate them all together. So now you have all the records that you need for all the different components of this process, but they're automatically related to each other. So you don't have to, point the arrows and drag and create those relationships yourself. It just cuts out a lot of work that is, you would not have to do manually. You would have to manually create your contact record and your account record, things like that, if you skip that lead process. So it is, I think, favorable and more time sensitive to start at the lead process and work into the opportunity. But here we are. We are in an opportunity. We have different fields. We can put in the description. We can put in the customer need, the current situation, things like that. You can see that it took my phone call from the lead and it moved it over here to the opportunity. So all those records that are in that qualified lead, those have now transferred over. So we're not losing any of that communication. But what else can we do now? So now we're at the opportunity point and they're like, all right, well, let's build out a quote. And so this is where we can actually turn this opportunity into a mechanism to create that quote, present that quote, and turn this into an order. So let's build out our quote. I'm going to go to this products tab here. Now we'll put in a default price list. And I'm going to add products. So what is it that they're interested in? So I'll click add products. And what I have here is a list of products that I have in my system. So within Dynamics, you do have the ability to track all of your different available products. And those can be either physical products or they can be digital products. It can be something that you supply digitally, if there's a code or a sign-in or something along those lines. Regardless, you can track all of your products and the pricing on those products within your system. So it makes it really, really easy for somebody who's building out one of these opportunities to be able to get a quote together, and they don't have to go and manually look up the price and things like that. So in this instance, let's say they're interested in an AirPod. So we're going to add that to the opportunity. Okay, now that was an existing predefined product. You also have the ability to be able to write in products. So say we also want to add installation, and that's not a product that we have in the system. I'm going to write in installation, and that's going to be $50. And so I can write that in. and add that to the opportunity as well. And so now you can see that we have both our write-in and also our predefined product in our opportunity. And you can see here that we have the totals, the detail amount, and tax can be considered if you put in your currency details and locations and things like that. And it's going to give you your total amount. So at this point, we're actually ready to create a quote. So we've got everything in here. We say, all right, well, this looks right. Let's create this quote and get it out to the prospect. So we're going to go to our quotes and we're going to go to new quote. And that's it. It automatically takes those products that I have listed on my opportunity and it populates them into this quote. So all I have to do now is double check things. I can put in some more information. So say I want to put in shipping information or more details about the quote, or maybe I want to put in some notes regarding this quote in here as well. You can make sure everything is all filled out, and then we'll save it to the system. And then all I have to do to get that out is click this export to PDF. And then what that's going to do is actually take the information from this quote and it's going to put it into our quote PDF template. This, like everything else, is customizable. So if you don't like how this looks, we can customize it with your logo and the layout that you prefer and all of that. You can put that in here, and so you have your own personalized template that matches what you want to see on your quote forms. And that can just instantly be generated here. And from here, we can download this PDF or we can email it even right from here, assuming you have your Dynamics connected up to your email, which is a quick, easy process that is part of our just about every project that we do. So it's that simple to really take a lead and take it all the way through a quote. And once a person says, yep, this looks good, we win that quote. And then we can start getting into orders and invoices. So there's really only a few screens that you have to go through to start from somebody handing you a business card to an invoice being sent out. Okay, so we are about halfway. And so what I'm going to do is take a pause real quick and see if there's any questions.
Hi, John. At this time, we do not have any questions in the queue.
Okay, let's give it just a couple of minutes, see if any pop in, and then I will move on. All right, queue still empty?
At this moment, yes.
Okay, all right, well, we will keep pushing then. Okay, so we've gone through the lead to quote process, and what we now have is a bunch of data in the system. But what do we do with it? I mean, there's all sorts of things that we can do with it, but there are a lot of great tools here actually just within the app to help us manage it and keep it organized. And so I showed you that timeline that is on the different record types that you can put in phone calls or tasks or emails or appointments or things like that, that you have either done or need to do. And that can operate as sort of a to-do for you. And so if if somebody says, hey, I need to, can you give me a call next Monday? You can, of course, put that in there as a reminder so that you remember to do that. But you don't actually have to open up that specific record to see that reminder. You actually have in your navigation this activities panel. And so what the activities panel is an area that will, I guess, sort of self-described. It's going to organize your activities for you. And it acts as sort of a checklist where you could just come in here at the beginning of a day and see, hey, here is all of the phone calls that I need to make today. You can have them listed in chronological order. You are able to filter them and sort them just like any of the other views that I showed earlier. You also have the ability to do some activity filtering. So I could come in here and say, I only want to see emails. That's going to filter it so it only says emails. Let's see phone calls. Now I have emails and phone calls. So it is, definitely filterable and sortable. You can see, hey, I only want to see ones that are past due. Only want to see ones that are due in the future. It is pretty much any way that you want to fashion your personal to-do list. You have the ability to do that here. And often these views are filtered by if the activity is active. And what that means is, have you completed it yet? So if I go into an activity, I'll go into this phone call here. I have this option up here to mark it as complete. And so if I were to mark it as complete, then that is no longer an active activity. And from there, it's going to drop off any to-do list that I have that only shows things that I still have active that I still need to complete. So just a great way of keeping that organized and making it easy for you to go in and check things off. Also, I know I am motivated that if I have a list of things to do, I like seeing that list getting smaller and smaller until there's nothing there. So that is a great opportunity for the activities panel here to be used. Another great way to see our data is dashboards. And so what we have here is one of these system dashboards. And they are pretty much what you would expect. They are a visual representation of the data that you have in the system. And they can be charts, graphs, they can be lists. I also have my AI assistant over here that is going to look at priority of activities or upcoming activities or meetings, things like that that I have. And it's going to kind of list those out. So I see my critical upcoming items here up in the top right. As well as it even has some insights. So it has a suggested follow-up. It can tell me some details about things that have occurred with contacts that I have that I might want to follow up on. But beyond the magic of AI, even just being able to see what are my opportunities, how much estimated revenue is in those opportunities, what are my biggest opportunities, just having these things organized in a nice visible fashion like this is very useful. This particular dashboard also has an activities section down here on the bottom that you can use as well, just like that activities section that we were just talking about before. But these things are customizable as well. So I have my system dashboards. I have this one here. It's going to show me my open leads. It's going to show me my open opportunities. And there's other ones in here as well. So I can go just to the regular sales dashboard. This is going to look a little different. It's going to be some different lists, but you can create your own. So if I want to create my own dashboard, so if I come in every morning and I'm looking at this and it has some of the info that I need, but not all of it, man, I really wish I could see this on my dashboard. That's fine. You can create your own. And so if you come up here to new, I'm going to create a new D365 dash. And it'll take just a second to load. But then what it does is it's going to give me an option. It'll give me essentially a drag and drop builder to be able to take those boxes and here, I'll do a refresh. So I can determine exactly, there we go. All right, so I'm going to do 2-column regular dashboard and we'll create. And let me get this on the screen for you. And it's going to give you your sections, and these are blank sections. So it really makes it easy for you to actually be able to build this out. And each one of these icons that is in here represents something that you can put within it. And so if I hover over it, it will tell you what those are. Now there's iframes, there's web resources, there's assistant. Those are more on the complex side. If you want to say point this to a separate web, a website, an external website, or even if you have like a Power BI report that you've developed externally that you want to surface here in the dashboard, you can do that. But even in the most basic components, let's just do, I want to see a graph. I'm going to create my chart, and it's going to be for activities. And let's see, activities by type. There we go. That's colorful. We'll do that. And then I want to see a list as well. So here I can go to activities. I want to see my activities. And there you go. And then I can save this, and I have that dashboard saved. And so then you can use that anytime you want. You have your own personalized dashboard. And so then when you come in here, you can go to your drop down, and I have my dashboards, and I can click that, and I can see exactly the dashboards that I created. Additionally, you can go to that and you can set those as default so that when you open up the system, that's the first thing that you see. So definitely useful. And it can really be expanded beyond just the basic graphs and here as well. I did mention Power BI. That's a whole other discussion. But if you want to create, very, very complex reports and surface those here, you do have those other options to be able to embed those here so that you can see, again, all the most important information to you as soon as you log in. Another thing I want to make sure that I briefly cover before we go into the actual sales accelerator portion is forecasting. So you are able to define goals. And again, these are customizable just like everything else. So you can set, say, a quota for a certain revenue amount for opportunities for an individual salesperson or for all of your salespeople. And then you can actually come in and look at your forecasting, and you can track what they have won, what is committed, what is essentially, how are we doing? What's the gap to the quota? Does it look like we're going to meet the goal? And this gives you kind of an ability to keep an eye on that and maybe put in some preventative measures if somebody is falling behind. Why is it? Maybe we can look into it and determine if it can be fixed. Maybe there's an issue that can be resolved that can help actually this individual or all individuals meet that goal. So you do have the ability to generate these forecasts based on goals within the system. And these can be exported and used as well in reports. But I do want to make sure I dive into this sales accelerator. So this is something that did not used to exist. It has been introduced, and I like it, and it works great. And it works along the same lines as some of the other things that I've shown, but it kind of keeps them nicely organized in almost a dashboard-like fashion, where it comes in and it's going to show you your work list. And I will talk about essentially how this is populated. Sales Accelerator uses what they call sequences. So on my work list here on the left side, I see a list of different leads and opportunities. And below them, you can see introduction email. So what that is that's the beginning of a sequence. And if you look in the center of the screen here where it says up next, and then top here it says new lead nurturing, New lead nurturing is the name of that sequence that I'm using. And so what that does is it gives us the ability to kind of automatically generate what the steps are through one of these steps. So through one of these processes. So with a lead, in this case, we have an introduction mail, and then we have a reminder email, and then we, have a pitch, and then we have a thank you email. And every one of these is going to go through this sequence. And so when I open this up and I have my work list, it will show me all of my leads, all of my opportunities, and where they are in the sequence. It will also prioritize them based on where they are in the sequence, so I know which ones I need to be attending to right now. Another thing that Sales Accelerator can do, if you have it configured, is lead scoring. So the neat thing about lead scoring is it gives you an actual definable score for those leads based on information, not gut feeling. And so this is one of the issues that I've seen in multiple sales deployments is when you go to any two different salespeople and you ask them how they feel about leads, they say, yeah, I've got a good feeling about this one. I've got a good feeling about this one. But what's that based on? That is based on their gut feeling. And some people could have a bad feeling about very good leads. Some people could have a great feeling about very bad leads. And so by defining what makes a good lead, you can actually set a score in the system. So based on the amount of activities or the amount of communication or potential revenue or won opportunities or the amount of emails, you can take any of these factors within the system and you can use that to build out a score. So you actually have a defined scalable lead score that you can use, and you can look at a list of 200 leads and you can order them by the ones that have the highest score. And so that just gives you a way to actually be able to define what makes a great lead for you and to be able to make those sit on top of the surface so you can get to those quicker. Okay, the last thing, so I did talk about products, how you can introduce those products. There is also competitor tracking. I do want to make sure that we discuss this a little bit. If you have opportunities and you are potentially going up against competitors, it's good to track that. And this can be hugely beneficial to your reporting if you do actually have a report that says, all right, well, let's look at our opportunities that we have lost this quarter or in the last 6 months or in the last year. Who are we losing them to? And if you have, one or two competitors that are really standing out, that are really stealing a lot of business, you can ask yourself why. And so it just gives you a great utility that you can use to, one, track who those opportunities are going to if you're not the one winning them. And then you can also use that to, gain insight and see if there's a way that you can't try to keep some of that business on your side instead of it going to competition. Okay, and the very last thing is, say you do not have a system like this at all, and you are considering one. One thing you might think is, well, I have all of this data in spreadsheets, and I have all this data all over the place. How do I get it in? Well, if you have a different system, there is the ability to have a different system and build integration into it, but it can be a lot simpler than that as well. Anything that you can get onto a spreadsheet, you can import into here. So let's use accounts as an example. So if I have a spreadsheet with 2,000 accounts on it, and I have all the different details and things that are there, all I have to do is go and import from Excel. And I can map all of those different columns in my spreadsheet into the appropriate columns within Dynamics, run it, a few minutes later, all 2,000 of those records are in the system. So it's actually quite easy to do the imports. Now, I described doing it as taking your spreadsheet and then mapping the fields into the columns. You can also export a template out of this that gives you an already mapped template, and then you can drop information into it. It just depends on what your data looks like. One could be easier than the other. It just depends. It's a case-by-case basis, but either way, there is an easy way for you to get your information into Sales Hub. Okay, geez, I've covered a lot. Let's see, we have 9 minutes. I am now going to open it up for questions.
John, we don't have any questions in the queue at this time, but if you guys do think of anything, please go ahead and enter them into the chat and we'll be happy to address them.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mind diving down any rabbit holes. I have the system here in front of me. I build these things all day, so if you want to throw a curveball at me, it's quite all right.
Well, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, just a little bit of information. We have a full calendar of upcoming webinars and boot camps that you guys can see all the information on our website. I'll put that information in the chat. And then if you think of questions after the webinar, you can always reach out to our team, and I will put that email in the chat as well.
I'm just putting up our thank you slide here, but I'll give you a couple more minutes if anybody thinks of anything. All right, well, thank you all for being here, and I hope we've given you some good information. If there's anything we didn't cover, like I said, please just reach out. We're happy to provide any info that you need, or any meetings or discussion that is necessary if you're considering something like this. We're happy to be a resource, so please do reach out. Thank you for your time, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.